Last week we learned how to use annihilators to solve a non-homogeneous DE equation. In this lecture, it's 4.6, we're going to learn how to solve a non-homogeneous DE equation by something called variation of parameters. And there's several steps. Step one is to write it in standard form. What I want to point out to you is that this leading coefficient is a 1. Your leading coefficient has to be a 1. If it's not a 1, then you need to factor it out of every term on both sides. If you don't factor it out, it will not mess up your y sub c, but it will have you have an incorrect y sub p. Step 2 is form auxiliary equation. I think we're all pretty good at doing that. 3 is solve the auxiliary equation. 4, find your y sub c. You guys, we've worked on that. Now it starts to get a little tricky. 5, identify what y sub 1 and y sub 2 is, okay? And y sub 1 and y sub 2 are the variable factors on C1 and C2. Let me make up a y sub c. Let's say y sub c equals C1 e to the 2x plus C2 e to the 3x. That right there, the variable factors on the C1 and C2, that's what I'm talking about. This would be called your u sub 1. This would be called your u sub 2. All right, let's continue on. That's step 5. And I just made up this y sub c, guys. Okay, you're going to find determinants, 2 by 2 determinants. W will be y sub 1 and y sub 2. That's what we just talked about. The second row of this determinant will be y sub 1 prime, y sub 2 prime. Now look what w sub 1 is. W sub 1, I think of this 1 in the first column, you're going to have a 0 there. F of x will be the non-homogeneous part of the equation. It will be the right-hand side of the equation. And then your second column, it will just be y sub 2 and y sub 2 prime. It matches this. W sub 2, you have a 0 here. And then here's your f of x here. That's the part that makes it non-homogeneous. It's the right-hand side. The first column is y sub 1. And then you find y sub 1 prime. Step 7. You're going to call something u sub 1 prime. It's going to be a ratio of these values of the determinants. U sub 1 prime is w sub 1, which is what you found here, over w. This one. U sub 2 prime is w sub 2 over w. Simplify those if you can. 8. What you're going to do now is integrate u sub 1 prime. Of course, that will take it back to u sub 1. And integrate u sub 2. You're integrating these two things. And that'll be your u sub 1 and u sub 2. Now it's time to write your equation. Your final answer. You know what y sub c is. That's from the previous page. Your y sub p will be complicated. Okay, and I'll have to do an example for it's going to make sense. Y sub p, in your y sub c, you normally have C1 times e to the x or whatever. Well, your y sub p is going to have coefficients where you normally have those c sub 1. It's going to be your u sub 1 and u sub 2. And then it's going to be multiplied by the same variable parts of y sub c. And then you're going to simplify, and this can be really nasty, simplifying this thing.